Hello everyone, my name is Yiyi. I'm from the University of Huddersfield, and the working title of my research is Investigating Managerial Practice in Music Industry Artist Management, examining the relationships between managers and musicians. So before we move to the main part of today's presentation, let's have a look at two groups of people. Here is the first group, the names and their photos. So obviously they are musicians, and they're currently quite popular. So for example, like Fred Turner, he just finished his UK tour, and Tom Gwen and Superorganism, and they are absolutely the upcoming musician from last year. And Calvin Harris and the XX, they've already been popular for a couple of years. So we like their music. We probably already went to a couple of their gigs, so we are familiar with them. So let's have a look at the second group. Here are the names and their photos. So who are they? They are the person or the management behind the musician above, and try to help them to achieve and maintain today's success. So they are their manager or they're their management company. So we're probably not familiar with all of them. So let's have a look at someone we know. Here we go. Troy Carter and Ash Panori. Troy Carter, he is a global head of creator services at Spotify. And he can be seen as the expert of new technologies, for example, like social media, music streaming. But Carter's experience of music industry didn't derive directly from international internet startups. He found the power of social media through being Lady Gaga's artist manager. So in terms of Lady Gaga, she is like a very interesting popular music phenomenon. So as Stephanie Giminata, she was dropped by a record deal, but in the same year, she met Carter, and then they started to work together. And they worked together to explore the different social media platforms, for example, like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, to heavily promote Gaga's career through those different platforms. So clearly, with Carter's management, he made the differences in Giminata's career. He actually transformed Giminata to Lady Gaga. However, in 2013, and Gaga announced that her relationship with Carter was ended. So at that moment, the press and the media tried to understand what happened. So Gaga told the press that because she felt like she was betrayed by a certain member of her team, and also she felt like she was gravely mismanaged by the team as well. So because of her response and her comment, that brought Carter into the front and let people know this is the person behind Lady Gaga. So this is the story between Gaga and Carter. So let's talk about Ash Panori. Ash Panori, he used to be the famous EDM DJ Avicii's manager. And he discovered Avicii in 2008, and then they started to work together. And Ash Panori got Avicii to co-work with superstars like Madonna and Coldplay, and released a single like Wake Me Up and Levels to break through the international market. But eventually, with Ash Panori's management, he transformed Avicii from a track maker to a mainstream pop star. But currently, Ash Panori became a focus because Avicii suddenly died in this April, and he found suicide. And because of this shocking news, people started to rewatch a documentary called Avicii True Story. So in this documentary, it actually showed a massive disagreement between Avicii and Ash Panori. And on one hand, eventually Avicii felt like he was going to die if he continued to follow this hectic schedule. But on the other hand, Ash Panori thought this DJ didn't really understand the principle of making profits in music business. So this disagreement actually led to their relationship ended in 2016. But now, because the sudden death, the DJ sudden death, and the people start to get to know not only the unhealthy lifestyle ADM DJ has, but also the specific managerial behavior that Ash Panori has. So because of this, from these two stories, what we've learned is we don't really have a chance to get to know who the person is behind the musician, unless this musician becomes very well known and then something goes wrong between the musician and the manager. So in another word, we could say we made an artist manager as a result of conflicts with his or her client. So during the years of artist's tremendous success, the fact is that being their manager seems a little bit incidental. So, but this is the way of music industry. Success is attributed to the musician, not to the individual person who made up the infrastructure for, that surrounds the musician as a product. So when it's come to popular culture, what immediately apparent when we think about an artist manager is an artist manager, they can be the person who's like very manipulative, greedy, and principled in product review. But sometimes they can be the person who just take care of the musician's daily routine and do some stuff the musician don't really want to be bothered. But within the music business, what we've known is the artist manager actually is the key connection between music companies and musicians. So they can find them charged with widest range of responsibility, from working with the relevant music company to coaxing musician to comply with the expectation of those hiring them, while always encouraging them to self-manage their musical productivity. So it seems like artist manager try to hold these two areas together and make it work. So in this basis, what we could say is the process of artist management can be seen as this mechanism, including 3 gears here. These two larger gears represent music companies and musicians. So the tools on music company here can obviously represent different companies. For example, like a record label, PR company, booking agent, promoters, and so on. For musicians, those tools on musicians' gears represent probably the diverse requirements. Like some musicians, they probably want a record deal. Some musicians, they probably want their music get on, playlist. Or some musicians, they probably want they play on festivals or something like that. And for the smaller gear is artist manager. And so the tools on artist manager's gears represent the specific responsibility, knowledge, and skill that a manager should have. So it means that those gear has to be well designed and to make sure the mechanism runs smoothly and to make sure those 3 gears can match with each other. So for anyone who get involved in this process, none of them really want to see the conflicts happen, because it will break the balance. It will cost people lost on investment, for example, like money, time, resources, and even emotion. So, for people who get involved in artist management, what they should do, they should reflect and update their working patterns and responsibility, try to avoid the potential conflicts. So now the question about what is to be a good artist manager, and how to maintain a healthy relationship to make sure this mechanism running smoothly. Those questions are valuable to be argued and studied. So in this way, this study is combined 2 areas together, artist management and the ministry management study, and also the interplay as well as the lack of interplay between them, to understand A, what is to be an artist manager, and B, to theorize the diverse dynamic in artist manager musicians relationship, and C, to compare and construct defining practice in artist management with those in industries that are not culture in character. So accessing artist management as a practice represents an enormous challenge to researchers. Without access, there can be no analysis. Whether in popular music or music industry study literature, or in the far wider and vastly more extensive management study literature, very few theories actually tackle A, nature of the role of artist manager, and B, the dynamic in this relationship, and C, there barely a crossover study between these 2 areas. So this study addresses the almost absence of study of artist management in academic literature. So let's have a look about what happened in literature. The first part is about the nature of the role of artist manager has been overlooked. So there have three key characteristics in this area. The first one is they can be seen as the toolbook, which means they introduce and expand different segments of music industry to anyone who get involved in this industry. And artist management is part of the segment. And the second characteristic is they give us an unclear job description. In terms of a job description, which we could easily find in any other industry, but in music industry, artist managers don't really have one. And the third characteristic is they provide an ambiguous role that managers should play. I've listed a couple of examples here, so let's just have a look about the first one. Franciscon and Hamilton, they point out a huge package of roles that managers should play. They said, a manager should be a planner, organizer, strategic, overseer, manipulator, coordinator, detail person, traveling companion, and friend. It seems like it's quite difficult to define the certain role that manager will play because it so much depends on musicians' specific requirements. So when it comes to the relationship, it's mainly studied from a business perspective as a contractual relationship. But think about the nature of the music industry. It is flexible, and just like Guy Morissette, he pointed out artist management is agile and is flexible. So, and for most grassroots levels, musicians and managers, they don't really sign a written contract. They prefer to sign a verbal agreement. So also like Addington, Duba, and James, they point out, because of the unique and the personal nature of this relationship, it is difficult, even helpful, to simply list the contractual tasks that an artist manager may implement. So in this way, some scholars, they started to study this relationship, the existing tension in this relationship from a management and ethics perspective. For example, like Mac Jones, he used his own experience of being managed to provide an impression of the nature of this relationship. He uses dilemma to describe this relationship. So this increased interest in this area. It also gave my research a starting point. So now, what we wonder is, where is the apparently relevant literature in mainstream management study? This question is not raised by me, it's also raised and argued by scholars from the music side. For example, like West and Gaffney, Jones, and Morrow, they all argue about what makes artist management as the hub of difficulty and uncertainty for both managers and musicians. One of the main reasons is there are no learning institute and no specialized body to maintain and develop standards. And also within the mainstream management studies, they do have some music-related studies, but it's mainly around two areas. One is music organization studies, but it's mainly about arts management in arts sector, which is a different environment compared to the popular music industry. And the second area is about music business study, and it's mainly around the study in the strategy and the economics. So what we've learned from the literature is the considerable gap between literature leaves almost only the stereotypical representations of popular culture for us to get an understanding. So in this way, this study conducts an ethnographic methodology to unpack popular cultural representation of the artist manager and use this unpacking to question why the apparently relevant literature failed to engage with the practice and the role of artist management. And it includes 3 steps. Because of the limited time, I couldn't go through each of them. So I'll talk about the first step because now I'm in that stage. The first step is using a long-term participate observation to capture data, which means I follow a UK-based artist manager trying to collect the data, about the day-to-day dynamic with this manager and the musician. And the observation is about 6 months, so I've already started to do it for 3 months already. So let's have a look about who is the person and what I've done with them and what happened. The person I selected is a female artist manager, and she has 15 years working experience in the local music scene. And now she owns a very tiny management company, including 3 people, herself, her assistant, and her boyfriend as a temporary helper. And they are together to manage 3 sets of musicians, 1 indie rock band, 1 uni band, and 1 folk singer-songwriter. During last 3 months, what I've done is I became part of this management team, and I participated in both managerial and social activities. For example, like I went to their weekly meetings, the gigs, the rehearsal sessions, and the recording sessions as well, to get to know the working dynamic between this manager and musicians, and including the challenges, rewards, and the strategies engaged. And for the social activities, I went to, I have conversation with them, became friends with them, and also one of the members invited me to go to his weddings. So through those activities, I could understand, the different personalities and the different social relations, and as well as the different group dynamics as well. So what just happened in the last 3 months is 2 bands actually left the management, and her assistant also left the team as well. So the first band left is the uni band, because they are a really young band and just work with the team for 6 months. And the disagreement between the band and the manager is the misunderstanding about management styles and management taste as well. So they end up this relationship just through sending emails. And so that means the relationship was ended quickly and simply. But for the second band is the rock band. And they used to have a really close relationship with especially with the managers and her boyfriend. But because of some financial issue, and they had a massive disagreement with the manager, it's mainly around the band believed this manager and her boyfriend was stealing money from them, especially stealing the funding that raised from the pledge campaign. So they thought it's not only about a financial issue, but also there's some moral issue behind it. So the interesting thing is, along with the argument between the band and the management team, her assistant was supporting this band, and she lent her own money to the band and to help them out without telling this manager. So after this relationship ended, she also left the team and then moved to another city to find another job, but still in the music industry. So for me, my observation, I still have 3 months to go. So I don't really know what is waiting for me and this manager. So I hope I could have an opportunity to share the entire case with you soon. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Some questions?
Yeah, thanks for the interesting presentation. I've been working with general management myself in Norway. So I'm happy to hear that others are working on that. My question is in terms of changes in the industry, like the digitalization, and how money flows differently and other parts take part. Do you have any impression of changes in the role of the managers?
Yeah.
Whether they have like skill sets, or do they have to? Are they more important today? Or can you say anything about that?
I think I also thank you for the question. I also have think about like the environment has changed the role of the manager as well. But I think the first point is the manager is no longer, from my own perspective, I think the manager is no longer have the strong power as before. Because if you look, in old days, they are like they have like the complete power to control the musician or to manipulate the musician. But now it's like the manager is became like normal, or they have like less power in this relationship, because the musician, they can understand this industry somehow from by themselves, because the new technology, the internet, and they can learn what it is about the contract or something like by themselves. So they probably have like higher requirements about the manager. Yeah.
I was wondering, it kind of relates to this in a sense. You mentioned there this idea of these kind of negative stereotypes about management, and there was this idea of necessary evil. I was wondering how issues of agency play out in this, whether the role of the manager, depending on who you ask, I suppose, is seen to be kind of facilitating the artist, or whether they are controlling the artist, and the artist ends up, like with the Troy Council person talked about earlier, how much we're ascribing, how much of the agency of change of Lady Gaga and Lady Gaga was him saying, this is who you really are, as opposed to anything having control.
You mean the control about artist mind?
Yeah, just kind of seeing that the main reason in my head it just immediately relates to the Jigsaw system in Japan, the idol industry, having these talent agencies that, as far as agency is concerned, it's entirely with the talent agency and management, and the artists are almost just kind of vessels for these ideas that the agencies are moving, and there are all kinds of other issues going on there to do with gender and age and that kind of stuff, which aren't necessarily the same thing. That's what we have to speak.
Yeah, I agree with your point, because I think for the artist management, they have like so many different styles in this area. So one of you mentioned about the talent agent is, I think it's part of one specific type of artist management. And for my research, it's like UK-based one, so I focus on the British music industry. But I do find out the differences between different managers, and sometimes it's mainly based on the specific a musician's specific requirements or expectation.
Just the two answers that you've just given seem to be about power relationships, and so I wonder how much you've looked into the way that power relationships are theorised in. I'm thinking of things like Bourdieu and cultural capital and so forth, because I don't know this piece of work very well, but there's an article by Longlingo and O'Mahony, great names, who talk about, they studied management system in Nashville, looking at the way that, as a system of brokerage, that the power of people by having social capital of knowing particular people, that they controlled situations and about who they put in touch with who, and how they kept those people separate and therefore maintained some control, but also just maintaining their living as well. So it wasn't a kind of evil scheme behind it. It was just a way of making sure that you stayed in the supply chain rather than being taken out from the supply chain. But I wonder if you've looked at work like that, because I remember 2 years ago in Brighton, there were a few people in music management studies looking at Bourdieu and power through that sort of thing.
I think that's like what I mentioned before, is part of the relationship. And I found like I think it's like an urgent conclusion for me, but I found these two types of management styles, or genre we could say. One is like they pretty much set up a clear line between their personal life and professional life, and the manager now like I'm just your manager. I'm doing the job, do the paid job, and but there's another type of manager. They really want to get involved in the musician's career. You want to get it personal, and not that, it's kind of like quite emotion for them. So I think there's different styles of relationship.
Can I ask you about this awful experience? What sounds to me like an awful experience when a band are accusing the management of stealing, and then that sounds obsessive for everybody.
Yeah.
And when you, with your fantastic little visualization of the gears turning, you're specifically thinking about a relationship with the recording industries or the music companies. Mm-hmm. But actually, what's going on this end of that gear is obviously really important. Mm. So what happened in this particular incident, and how do you think that, why did it go so horribly wrong?
Because I didn't finish my observation, so I couldn't give you like the exactly conclusion. But I think there's so much reason like mixing that also made this study like really challenging for me, because it's sometimes it depends on this manager's her own ability and her own awareness about the music industry. And sometimes it's because the musician, they probably have like really high expectation about their career. They probably want to be a superstar. But for their manager, they couldn't do that, especially for grassroots managers. They don't really have a certain network or a certain money, a certain power of in this industry. So they may help them to move on a little bit, or nothing happened in the relationship. So there's so many things to influence this. Yeah.
So it's not just about the artist management and their ability to do what the band wants. It's about managing the band's dreams as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the manager should be like the bridge between the music industry and the musician, and so they kind of like explain the music business to the musician to let them. It's kind of like being a English translator to translate English to English people, and so that requires like a lot of knowledge and skills. Yeah.
Could you just explain that analogy of the English teacher?
I mean, like the English translator translates English to English people. It's like, because for some musicians, they probably focus on doing music. I think a lot of musicians, they want to, impress themselves. Like they focus on being creative, and they don't. Probably some of them, they don't really understand the principle of music business. So for the manager, one of their job is to explain. For example, the record label, they want their music to sound more commercial. So for the manager, how could they explain this to the musician? If they, directly say, I don't think it sounds good. I think the music should sound more, commercial. I think the musicians, they will find offended about, these comments. So for the manager, they should be like more smart to put it in a smart way.
The University of Huddersfield, inspiring tomorrow's professionals.